It was just after 6:30 p.m. when Eleanor Whitfield steered her old sedan off Highway 378, merging onto the quieter, winding stretch of Route 58, heading back toward her home in Stillwater County. The sun was sinking low, casting a warm golden glow across the sprawling cotton fields. Eleanor, 62 years old, wore her usual soft patterned blouse, simple silver earrings, and tucked beneath her collar the dog tags of her late husband, a veteran whose memory stayed close to her heart. She drove a 2004 Honda Accord, its steering wheel worn smooth from years of faithful service, the back seat crowded with church pamphlets and a half-folded sweater. Earlier that afternoon, she had visited her younger sister Darlene in Florence, helped her transplant tomatoes into the garden beds, shared laughter about old family tales, and packed up a small tin of cornbread to take home. It had been a simple, satisfying day, the kind that refills the soul without ceremony. But that contentment began to unravel the moment she noticed the State Patrol cruiser in her rearview mirror. At first, Eleanor thought little of it. It wasn't unusual to have a patrol car tail you for a few miles. Yet when the cruiser mirrored every turn she made, creeping closer and closer without lights or sirens, the hair on her arms stood on end. She adjusted her grip on the steering wheel, casting another glance into the mirror. The man behind the wheel wore dark sunglasses, even though twilight was descending fast. His jaw was tight. His gaze didn't waver. When she signaled and pulled over onto the shoulder, the cruiser immediately flared its lights. Eleanor turned off her ignition, placed both hands visibly on the wheel, and sat as still as stone. The officer didn't approach right away. Instead, he stood by his cruiser, speaking into his radio. Watching, waiting, measuring. When he finally moved, it was with slow, deliberate steps, boots grinding against the gravel with each movement. Eleanor rolled her window down halfway. "License and registration," he said flatly. "No greeting. No explanation." Her movements were careful, deliberate, and spoken aloud, just as she'd learned to do long ago. "My license is in my wallet. Registration's in the glove box. I'm reaching now," she announced, slowly retrieving the items and handing them over. He gave them a cursory glance before flicking his eyes back up to her. "You from around here?" he asked. "I live in Stillwater County," Eleanor answered evenly. "What brings you out here tonight?" "I was visiting my sister in Florence. Just heading home." "You take this road often?" Eleanor blinked, feeling the simmer of unease. "Sir, is there a reason you pulled me over?" "You crossed the center line back there," he said, his tone sharpening. She didn't flinch. "I didn't feel my tires cross, but if you say I did, you did." He let the silence stretch between them like a taut wire. A dare to contest his word. Eleanor didn't take the bait. Instead, she asked, "May I know your name, officer?" He didn't answer. Instead, he stepped back and said curtly, "I'm going to need you to step out of the vehicle." Her heartbeat remained steady, but her jaw set. "For what reason, sir?" "Step out of the vehicle, ma'am." She took a slow breath. "Am I under arrest?" "Don't play games with me." "Out of the car. Now." Glancing around, Eleanor saw nothing but open fields. "No weaknesses." "Still," she complied, unbuckling and stepping out carefully. The officer circled her car like a hawk, peering into windows, inspecting every detail as though willing an infraction to materialize. "Where's your destination again?" "Home. Stillwater." "How long were you with your sister?" "Since lunchtime." "You drive this car often?" "It's mine," she said plainly. He smirked, a patronizing twist of the lips, as if he didn't believe her. "Mind if I take a look inside?" "I do mind," Eleanor said calmly. "Excuse me." His voice tightened. "I don't consent to a search." His stance shifted immediately, posture rigid, hand brushing his radio as though to remind Haran himself who held the supposed power here. "I can get AK 9 unit down here," he warned. "You can," Eleanor agreed, but not without cause. Their gazes locked. Silent conversations passed between them, spoken in experience, not words. "You got something in that trunk you don't want me to see?" "No, sir." "Then why not let me take a look?" Because you haven't given me a reason to. He didn't respond. Instead, he rattled her driver's side door handle. I did not give you permission to open my door, she said, raising her voice just enough to be firm. He scowled. You obstructing an investigation, ma'am? You could try that, Eleanor said without blinking. The officer exhaled sharply, annoyance clear. Eleanor could feel the tension ratcheting up. This wasn't about law enforcement anymore. This was about control. She spoke softly but clearly. Officer, I'm going to make a phone call now. Not to interfere, just to document what's happening. He snorted. Sure, you do that. Eleanor pulled out an old flip phone, ancient compared to today's standards but functional. She dialed with deliberate slowness. It rang twice before a voice answered. Hey, Mama, everything all right? Caleb, she said. I'm pulled over on Route 58, near the old Miller farm. Can you come? The officer scoffed. What, he's a lawyer? She paused. Something like that. The sky deepened from orange to a dusky violet. The road remained empty, save for the occasional passing truck kicking up clouds of dust. The trooper fidgeted more now, checking his watch, glancing down the road. He hadn't expected a call, hadn't expected witnesses. 10 minutes felt like an hour until a sleek black SUV rolled quietly onto the shoulder behind Eleanor's car. The door opened, and out stepped a tall man in Army service uniform formal enough to command attention, with badges gleaming in the fading light. Major Caleb Whitfield, Eleanor's son. The trooper visibly stiffened. His mouth opened, but no words came out. Caleb strode forward, posture impeccable, voice even but cold. Good evening, officer. I'm Major Whitfield, U.S. Army Judge, Advocate General's Corps. My mother called me. May I ask the nature of this stop? She crossed the center line. I thought. You thought it best to detain a 62-year-old widow without informing her of her rights or reason for the stop? Caleb said without raising his voice. She wasn't detained. She stepped out willingly. After you ordered her. The trooper looked cornered. Caleb continued. Do you have dashcam footage showing this alleged violation? I'd have to check, the trooper stammered. I suggest you do. The officer's hands hovered near his belt awkwardly, searching for an anchor. My mother refused consent for a search, yet you attempted to open her door. Correct. Yes, but. There is no but, Caleb said. You understand that was unlawful? Yes, sir. Eleanor stood silently, strong and unbowed, letting her son fill the space she had preserved. This conduct is precisely why civilian oversight exists, Caleb said. Trust is eroded right here on a lonely country rode by actions like this. The officer looked down, chastened. Caleb stepped closer to Eleanor, his hand resting lightly on her shoulder, not to comfort, but to affirm. He turned back. Is your supervisor available? I'll call dispatch, the officer said, his voice tight. Within 15 minutes, a second cruiser arrived. Sergeant David Carmichael stepped out, his face unreadable. Caleb briefed him calmly, outlining every detail with military precision. Sergeant Carmichael listened carefully, nodded once, then said, We'll conduct a full review. Eleanor stayed by her car, never flinching, never retreating. Before long, Caleb leaned into his mother. You want me to drive? She smiled thinly. No, I've had enough taken from me today. I'll keep this one. As she pulled back on a Route 58, her son's SUV trailing behind, Eleanor didn't feel vindicated, only steady, unshaken. And in towns like Stillwater, word traveled fast. By Sunday, whispers of the incident filled church pews, grocery aisles, and barbershops. Not because Eleanor sought fame, but because her quiet strength stirred something that had been dormant too long. She didn't post about it, didn't rage online. She just lived. But her community began to see her differently, not as the quiet widow at the edge of town, but as a symbol of endurance. Caleb filed a formal complaint. Internal Affairs launched an investigation. The trooper was placed on administrative leave. Conversations began shifting, slowly, but perceptibly. When Eleanor was asked to speak at a community meeting, she simply said, I didn't come here to be angry. I came to remind you sometimes you can do everything right and still be seen as wrong. And when that happens, you must stand firm not because you expect justice, but because you deserve dignity. People listened, really listened. It wasn't a revolution, but it was a start. And Eleanor Whitfield, steady, quiet, and unshaken, was at the center of it all. Because sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is simply refuse to be moved.